I think that grind has changed a lot with Trump 2.0. It's definitely like grinding. It feels more of really feels like a daily grind. But I mean, the day-to-day grind is trying to, number one, figure out how we do our work better, figure out what our strategy is to engage voters, which that just sounds like a bunch of talk, but it is really like labor intensive when you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to do it with limited resources. Like, how are we going to be able to tell all these people the things they need to know? And we've got this small bucket of money. It's fundraising, which is asking folks for money all the time, which is a grind within itself. It feels like trying to be everything for everybody when you
Mhm.
absolutely can't, right? When you need to be the teacher and the police officer, as Ray said, the referee, like it's just a lot of work and trying to figure out how you set your priorities and stick with those things so that you can actually achieve your goal of winning and electing Democrats in November elections is a challenge.
Welcome back to At Our Table, and I'm your host, Jamie Harrison. Today, I'm joined by three friends of mine who happen to carry some of the toughest, most important jobs in politics: state party chairs of early presidential primary states. These are the folks building the foundation for our democracy year in and year out. We got Ray Buckley of New Hampshire, Christale Spain of South Carolina, and Daniele Monroe-Moreno of Nevada. We're going to talk about what it means to be a state party chair, how early states complement each other, stories from the trenches, and why state parties matter more than most people realize. Ray, Christale, and Daniele, welcome to At Our Table. How are y'all
Good.
doing?
Great.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is
good
so.
afternoon.
Yes, we're in different time zones here. It's so good to see you all, and I can't wait to see you at the next DNC meeting. But I really wanted to have this conversation because not only are you state party chairs, which is really, really important in terms of the entire Democratic ecosystem, but the three of you are very special because you are state party chairs that are chairing early presidential primary states. It's almost like you got extra little superpowers. And so, I really want to get an opportunity for people to get to know who you are, but also to learn more about what state parties do, the role of the state party chair, and why early presidential primary states are so important to the entire process of selecting who eventually becomes our nominee. So let's start off with the dean of state party chairs, our good friend Ray Buckley up in New Hampshire. Ray,
Excellent.
can we first start off? Just give us a sense about your background. You've been chair for a long time. You've seen it all. What was your path to becoming a state party chair?
I started volunteering for Ed Muskie back when I was 11 and 12 years old. Obviously, Muskie being from Maine, my fifth grade teacher went to elementary school with Muskie's sister, and that's how I got connected to there. And really, there's been no turning back since then. I got very involved in Jimmy Carter's campaign very early on in 1975 and got to be part of their inner circle, I guess, of 34 people. I always thought it was a little odd that a 15-year-old was being welcomed into this into that circle. And I, at that point, had envisioned becoming state party chair simply because New Hampshire was such a ruby red state, and I was determined to do everything I could to make it a competitive state and hopefully eventually a blue state. And so many of the things that I thought about as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, thankfully I've been able to accomplish. But getting to know all these presidential candidates, we took it very seriously. Jimmy Carter was on the Today Show with Barbara Walters, like in February 1975. I saw that she was coming on. I was home with a cold. And so I took notes to see who I wanted to support. And that's how seriously I think voters in all of the early states take their responsibility, getting to meet the candidates and really asking them the tough questions. So I've gone through 5 primaries as chair, and then previous to that 2 as vice chair, and then obviously as executive director. But I've been through quite a few years.
Ray, you were one of the first people that I met, and again, you are the dean of state party chairs, and One thing I'm just so grateful for is how you just bring a lot of us youngins under your wing and help navigate us through this process of being a state party chair, because there's really no guidebook for how you serve in this capacity, in this role. And you've just been a great teacher for, I think, so many of us over the years. Um, I want to go next to Crystal Spain. Now, Crystal, you and I have known each other for a long time. Folks, you may not know this. Crystal is the first African American woman to serve as state party chair in South Carolina. But Crystal was my executive director when I was state party chair. So, Crystal, what first pulled you into politics, and how did you find your way into coming from the background, behind the camera, and now you're in front of the camera? Tell us a little bit about your origin story in politics.
My origin story, not my villain origin story. I don't think I'm a villain quite yet. But I came through the back door. I came in to volunteer. I tell this story all the time. I was in between jobs. I didn't want to have a huge gap in my resume, so I started volunteering, and I came in to volunteer for Obama's reelect, but I ended up volunteering for the state party. And at the time, Dick Harpootlian was the chair, and Jamie, I think you were the second vice chair?
First vice chair.
First vice chair. You were the first vice chair. That was 2012, and I just did everything everybody asked me to do. I packed boxes, pulled stuff around, swept the floor, made coffee, knocked on doors, did all those things. And I will say that when Jamie ran the following year, I think it was, for chair, I had been hired to answer the phone. I was a front desk worker. That was literally my title. I was front desk worker and I was answering the phone. But Jamie came in and he kept everybody that was there, and he really, really invested in me and showed me that this could possibly be a career. I was here for, I came to volunteer, but I ended up getting a little job, and then I got a little bit better job. And then when Jamie came, it got a little bit better. And it just kept ballooning from there. So I'm not like Ray. I did not know I wanted to be party chair at age 15. I think I was 46 when I fathomed, I thought that I could do it. I didn't really want to do it, but I would step up and take this leadership role. But yeah, I literally came in through the back door just to help out. You know, I'm the ottoman.
And now you are state party chair, and I would say you are a damn good chair. I am happy to call you my Madam Chair,
Oh, thank you
because
so much, Jeremy.
because you put your heart and soul into really helping us rebuild our party here in South Carolina.
Thank
And,
you.
and Danielle, you came up through public service in the legislature. You're also a glass ceiling breaker in your own right. Tell us a little bit about how you became Madam Chair in Nevada.
Wow. So I wasn't 15 when I got into politics like Ray. I was a little bit younger. My parents were always at city council meetings, county commission meetings, advocating for one thing or another. My dad had served in the military, so he was always advocating for veterans issues. My mom had battled cancer and wasn't unable to have children, so they adopted me and were foster parents. My mom was always advocating for children's issues, and I said I was not going to grow up and be like my parents. I wasn't going to be arguing with people about stuff. I became worse than my parents because I ran for office, right? And because change needs to happen, I found myself advocating for employees as a union rep. My career was in law enforcement, but not just advocating for the officers that I worked with, but also advocating for the civilians that I worked with to make sure that they had livable wages and great working conditions. And I learned that there's only so much you can do and be successful as an advocate. You really need to be at the table and be a policymaker. So I ran for our state legislature. And yes, you said a glass ceiling breaker. I'm the first Black woman to ever be in leadership in the Nevada State Legislature and the Assembly. I'm currently the Speaker Pro Tem, and I chair the Ways and Means Committee. But as an elected leader, I knew we needed a very strong state party. And at the time, our state party was not where it needed to be. And I was out there looking for the right person to step up. I had served on our county board as a second vice chair for the Clark County Democratic Party. And I kept looking and couldn't find the right person. And finally, Like, you can't complain if you're not gonna be part of the solution.
Mhm.
So, talked to my legislative leadership, and they're like, "You know, you're crazy because that's an unpaid job you're trying to take on." And I'm like, "But someone has to do it." And ran, won overwhelmingly, and became the first Black woman to be the chair of the Nevada State Democratic Party. And I ran because I wanted to bring civility back to our party. The infighting was just ridiculous. Our battle is not within, or shouldn't be within. Our battle should be with the people on the other side that don't align with our policies and our platforms. So that's why I ran. I am, I guess, a sophomore chair. I went through my freshman year with Christale, and I think we've been successful in Nevada in bringing the party back together, but a lot of it was because I followed you and your leadership, and then I looked up to those other chairs who have been doing this work in other states for a long time and leaning in on their wisdom of what we needed to do better here in our state. And then, going back to what Harry Reid had taught me years ago about organizing and having boots on the ground and boots on the ground early.
Danielle, as you were talking about your run, I think Ray and I particularly, and Crystal were smiling because we remember the challenges that were in the Nevada
Mhm.
Democratic Party,
Yes.
and you have really brought a level of stability and confidence to that work and to the state and to the state party. I mean, you really have been a breath of fresh air, and so proud of you and what you have done and how you've transformed that party to be, one of the strongest in the country right now.
Thank you. I have a great team. I have a
Yeah.
great team.
I want to spend a little time really helping people to look back behind the curtain to understand how all these things work. Let's go to the very bare basics. And Ray, I want to start with you. How do you explain to regular people what a state party does?
Well, it's not always easy because people believe that the state party is something that it's not. And what we're not is this super controlling operation that runs everything. We're the foundation for our candidates. We build the space for the candidates to be able to run for our nomination, either for president or for local office, and make sure that everyone has a level playing field and everyone feels welcome. I see my job as somebody who looks around and says, is everybody here feeling like they belong here? And if not, what can I do to make them feel more welcome? Being inclusive is a huge part of what the state party chair is, constantly bringing in new people, empowering them, and allowing them to thrive because party gets very stale if we don't constantly have new people coming in. So bringing that in, providing the tools for our candidates, like a voter file and the infrastructure of the local committees that are built. Those are the sorts of things that we do, but it's really more of a referee, more of a cheerleader, and behind the scenes. And it's not really declaring what are the issues that we're all going to run on this year. That's something that the candidates all by working together develop that sort of a theme. It's not really the party telling them. And a lot of people think that that's not the case, that somehow, whether it's the DNC or the state parties, that we somehow have this magical power over our entire ecosystem of the Democratic Party.
And I think, there are a lot of folks who do think that parties and the DNC have these superpowers. But Crystal, can you tell us a little bit in terms of your perspective? What's the day-to-day grind of being the chair of the South Carolina party? And what's something that most people would never see, maybe never even understand in terms of what you actually do on a day-to-day basis?
I think that grind has changed a lot with Trump 2.0. It's definitely like grinding. It feels more of really feels like a daily grind. But I mean, the day-to-day grind is trying to, number one, figure out how we do our work better, figure out what our strategy is to engage voters, which that just sounds like a bunch of talk, but it is really like labor intensive when you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to do it with limited resources. Like, how are we going to be able to tell all these people the things they need to know? And we've got this small bucket of money. It's fundraising, which is asking folks for money all the time, which is a grind within itself. It's almost for South Carolina because we don't have a lot of political infrastructure here. It feels like trying to be everything for everybody when you
Mhm.
absolutely can't, right? When you need to be the teacher and the police officer, as Ray said, the referee, like it's just a lot of work and trying to figure out how you set your priorities and stick with those things so that you can actually achieve your goal of winning and electing Democrats in November elections is a challenge. And I mean, I don't know if that even answered your question, but it is just a daily grind of trying to maintain relevance and having the infrastructure here so when you do get candidates that they can launch and be successful.
And on that note, I'm going to go Ray, Christale, Danielle. How many people do you have working in your state party currently, and how big is your state so that people get a relative sense of how big your state is to the number of people that you have right now working on a day-to-day basis in the state party?
We have a core staff of 9. Most of it is based on working with the grassroots, providing support for our town chairs, for our county chairs. That's really been a big change in the party, that we are really working constantly, year in and year out, with trainings and involvement and attending their meetings and providing the information and doing this sort of work. And then we have our comm shop, which obviously creates content constantly for our elected officials, for our candidates, for our local committees. And that's, we have data director, we have, business, the person that does all of the uh, filing of the reports and keeping track of all the money. And then, of course, the fundraising, which is, to use Crystal's word, of a grind. Fundraising for a state party is a very heavy lift and a grind. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have such a high turnover of state chairs, that some of them just, you know, you have to spend every day asking people for money, and it sometimes can be very disillusioning. And I think some of the state chairs, after a couple of years, just get exhausted from it. Then there's those of us who just keep on plugging.
And Ray, you got 9 people in a state of how many?
Well, we have about 1.3 million, 2 congressional
Okay.
districts.
Crystal, number of staff and also how big is state?
I don't know what our population is right offhand,
It's
but I
about
know
5.3, I think, last
yeah,
time I saw.
okay. I was gonna say 4, but 5.3 million people. We've got 7 core staff, 46 counties, and we do pretty much the same as what Ray's doing, training our county parties, recruiting candidates, all the things. It's just probably less political infrastructure in the state than Ray has.
Yeah. And so, Danielle, same question for you. And then I also want you to talk about, what do most people often misunderstand about the party and the party operations in Nevada? So if you could tell us how big your staff is, how many people in Nevada, and then what people don't really get about what you all do there.
Yeah. So right now we're down to 5 staff. I have 3 more seats that I need to fill that I'd like to get filled, but it goes back to that daily fundraising. I tell people jokingly that as state party chairs, we're pimping ourselves out to make sure people get elected. Um, but right now we have 5 staff. We have just over 3 million people in the state of Nevada, and there's 17 counties. And for a while, people have thought that Nevada is a blue state. We're a very purple state,
Mm-hmm.
hence why I'm wearing purple. We fight and we punch above our weight class here in Nevada. In this, my daily job is talking to folks. It's communicating with people and listening to them. Nevada has one of the most diverse populations of any state in the nation, right? We are a majority minority state. So our daily marching orders are, how do we communicate with each one of those different demographics in our state? And in coming in as chair, making sure that I had caucuses that were reflective of that diversity, because the state party and my 5 staff or 8 staff, if I'm at optimum staffing levels, can't be everywhere for everyone at all times in all 17 states. But making sure we had strong caucuses from our Latino caucus, our Black caucus, our Veterans caucus, our LGBTQ caucus, growing them and giving them the tools that they need to do the work in their demographics helps the state party. it's talking to those voters, but listening to them. So I travel our state every year, hitting all 17 counties. We call it the kitchen table tour, to talk to voters, but more importantly, to listen to voters, and not just Democratic voters, because if we just talk to Democrats, we're talking and preaching to the choir, right? And listening to the choir, but listening to constituents throughout the state about what's important to them, but also telling them the story about what their elected officials have done. In Nevada, we have been blessed that with our small staff, we're small but mighty. We have 3 congressional members in Congress and 2 senators. There's only 1 congressional seat in this state that is not blue right now. And we're actively looking for an opponent to go up against that person. But that takes hard work, and the work starts at 5 o'clock in the morning, sometimes doesn't end until midnight, and sometimes we are the referee. We're the mom, we're the nurse, we're the daddy, we're the person that you have to have that come to Jesus conversation with about this infighting must come to an end, but that's what we're doing. That's the work in Nevada. We are a battleground state for a reason, but we're also one of the biggest and strongest union states in the country. So it's that relationship building with them, and it's year round. We
Yeah.
can't take our foot off the gas. The work of a state party chair is a year-round job, 24/7.
And many of our state party chairs, and again, I want to pull the curtain back so folks understand it. Many of our state party chairs don't get paid. Many of our state parties, as you have heard here, folks, are operating with millions of people that they represent, but are operating with, all 3 of these state party chairs with less than 10 people on their staff. And they have to do all of these things that people want the party to do each and every day. They have to message, they have to communicate with folks, they have to fundraise, they have to be there for the members of the legislature, they have to be there for their county parties and all of the county party folks. They have executive committee meetings with all of their precinct captains and all of their county party chairs. Like, this is something that these 3 chairs, along with their handful of staff, have to do day after day after day, and they don't get a day off. It is Sunday to Monday. I mean, it is nonstop, and I think it's really important because people are very quick to want to critique and criticize our state parties and this and that, when they only have a handful of people. And I often say that parties are only as good as the people who show up and who make it up. So if you want your party to be better, then some of y'all need to go and volunteer. Some of you need to roll up your sleeves and send a contribution or a check, because I just wanted folks to really get a sense that these are not these huge corporations or huge groups of folks that are doing this work every election cycle. And so I'm sorry for being on my perch here, but I just want to say thank you all for the work that you do, because I know how hard it is, and how much of a grind it is, and how much effort that you and your staff put into it. And it does not go unnoticed, at least not for me.
Well, thank you. We're looking
Thank
for
you for that.
advocates. Thank you.
Yes.
and donors.
And donors.
Therapists.
and therapists. You see, Crystal has a sort of a couch in the back.
Come in.
Being a state party chair, sometimes you need a damn couch because the work is hard. The work is really, really hard. I also want to talk about a little bit. A lot of people don't understand the difference between state parties and the DNC.
Mhm.
And I open this to any of you. How is the DNC different from a state party? And what does the DNC do for state parties? And I don't know who. I'll throw this out at whomever wants to start on that.
I'll jump in. For many, many decades, the DNC was solely focused on the White House and really didn't pay much attention to state parties, didn't pay much attention to state races or even congressional races if they could avoid it. There was really a focus. And I'm very grateful the last few years that has radically changed. In New Hampshire, before I became chair many years ago, we were always focused on just one or two major offices and didn't have the bandwidth to be able to be involved in municipal elections and in our state legislative elections. We don't take anything for granted. Like Danielle, we're a battleground state in the sense that we are closely divided. Hence, I don't have a purple tie, but I have an evenly divided red and blue tie. Uh, and, one of the things that the difference is that we're on the ground. They see us. They can talk to us. When, your folks are working either at the DNC or a DNC officer, there's a little bit of a separation. But just like the state party chairs, the DNC chair takes a lot of incoming and a lot of flack. And, there's a great deal of people that are part of the yeah, but club. I'll say, well, we have carried New Hampshire, whether we're targeted or not, in every presidential race since 2004. Yeah, but what about this? And, I'll say, well, we've won every federal race. We've held the entire congressional delegation since 2016, which we had never even held it once before that, where we had both senators and both members of Congress. Well, yeah, but what about this? After the 2008 massive sweep here in New Hampshire, where we won everything, well, you didn't. That state senate candidate didn't win, so you're not all that good. There are some people that the bar constantly is raised with them. And that is the case with the DNC as well, that folks don't really understand what the DNC's role is. The DNC gets blamed for things that the Democratic Governors Association does, the Congressional Campaign Committee, the Senatorial Campaign Committee, and the other organizations. They don't understand there's a separation. That's the same thing that happens to us. Our Senate and House caucuses are separate entities. They have their own staff. They raise their own amount of money. But their decisions somehow I have some superpower that controls their budget and their recruitment and their targeting, and getting them to understand that they each have their own missions. And a lot of people don't understand the gigantic uh, ecosystem that has been created with all of these other side groups, especially after Citizens United, that are spending millions in our states that we don't have any control over and we don't have any relationship. And that happens nationally as well. People say, oh, if Democrats do this or Democrats do that, when they're really talking about oftentimes a specific organization or a group of people that are making those sorts of decisions. We're just chugging along trying to build the strongest foundation for our candidates and not really involved in a lot of the stuff that they criticize us for.
Crystal, does the DNC do anything for state parties?
Yeah, the DNC does support state parties to the best of their ability. I don't remember what it was before you were chair, Jamie, but I know that you increased that financial support substantially. You created the Red State Fund, which benefits states like South Carolina. We're not red, we're not blue, we're not purple, but I'm wearing a gold shirt because we get a gold star for effort for punching above our weight at all times. But since I've been involved, and I've definitely a lot not as long as Ray, but the DNC has been trying to support state parties more. And I know that Jamie was a big part of shifting that and giving that financial support. And given sometimes we get staff support, which is also very much needed in a state like South Carolina. So sending resources our way is always beneficial. And we've received a lot of support from the DNC in recent years.
Yeah, I would say, the DNC, both the DNC and state parties, I think people see us as one. Joe Blow Citizen just sees us as one. So state party chairs are pretty much like the state representative for the DNC in their communities. So it's that showing up and listening and organizing. And I was able, when you were our DNC chair, when I would hear things on the ground here in Nevada, I could pick up a phone or text you and say, hey, was at an event and this is what I'm hearing here. Not sure what they're hearing in other states. And you were responsive and would answer back. I'm happy that Ken Martin has carried on that legacy to have that open communications with his state party chairs and also continue the legacy that you started of the infrastructure funding to state parties because we can't do the work alone, but also, as Crystal said, for those positions. The DNC focuses more on the federal level, where state parties, we go all the way down to the school boards. We're helping those candidates all the way down to school boards, because you find that if someone wins at those lower level seats and they get their foot in the door, that's when they rise to other positions. We have a responsibility to make sure that we have candidates ready for all positions. And as state party here in Nevada, in our office, we have the Assembly Legislative Caucus that sits in our office and has a room where it's their office, and the Senate. And our congressional delegations, their staff work closely with us. So we're a close-knit family because we're a small state. And we know that it takes all of us working together. But then it also has those folks that may not get endorsed by the Assembly Caucus or the Senate Caucus, because it's not the state party that does that endorsement, but it's a Democrat on the ballot. And I also want to make sure, as a state party chair, that maybe this isn't the time for them to run, but I want to make sure that they're prepared to run. I open my home and bring them to the dinner table and say, how can I help you get ready? Because I believe that's what a state party chair is supposed to do, to help build the bench. And I think that's what we do in each one of our states in different ways. But we also do this here in Nevada. It's not just about getting a vote or getting the money, but we need them both. But we say that we're the big tent party that cares about you. We are out in community. We're out in community every quarter. We're doing weekends of service where we're just giving back statewide, having our county parties and our caucuses statewide, just doing something to help people in their communities. If Democrats say we're the party that cares about people, then I said we need to show up for them and we need to show that we care. That's something that's been growing for the last 2 years, where people see us, where we're not asking for money, we're not asking for a vote, we're just there to help you in any way possible. And I think that helps us build community, and by build community, we'll build our party and get them to vote for our candidates when they see them on the ballot.
Now, the three of you are, in addition to being state party chairs, you are again, you're kind of special in this process because you are early presidential primary state party chairs. And all three of you have gone through at least one cycle as a presidential primary state party chair. What does it mean to be an early presidential primary state?
I mean,
Wow.
Ray, do you want to give us the history lesson on what that means? Or do you want to just speak to the people? Go ahead, Ray. Lay the framework.
Well, the early states traditionally work very closely together to make sure that our candidates are all being treated fairly, and no matter what state that they're in. We accept that we have a heavier responsibility than some of the other states that come in later on in the process.
Well, Ray, can you back up? There's some people who don't even know what an early, before you guys work together, they don't even have a clue when I say an early presidential primary state. Can you just give a sense of what that technically means?
Well, this is this is the latest edition. You can get it on Amazon, and it will be delivered within 48 hours. But
And what was that for our folks who can't see your book but are just listening on Apple Podcasts or whatever?
it's Dr. Elaine Kamarck, Kamarck, and it's called Primary Politics. And she is the resident expert on the nominating process, and she goes into great detail back starting in the 1800s. And it's actually written in a way that's interesting. Every time she updates it, I buy the newest version of that. What had happened for many years is that by chance, Iowa and New Hampshire had been traditionally the first states. Then in 2006, to increase diversity, both South Carolina and Nevada were added together. And the four states, we realized, both Iowa and New Hampshire realized, that we had a special responsibility of assisting both South Carolina and Nevada. I went to Nevada in four caucuses in a row and ran caucuses in the big casinos. That was an experience. And certainly coming down to the fish fry and the debates and the other events, the state conventions that you've held, that we work together. Part of making sure that we don't schedule things on the same date, so that we don't have a competing state convention going on, so that makes the candidates have to then decide, or a major dinner, or any of the sorts of larger involvement developments. We work together with that. We also will say, hey, we're having trouble with candidate X's campaign. Are you as well? Or this is what we've done to help this other candidate feel a little bit more welcome. But we are always gracious hosts. We welcome everybody that comes in, no matter how absurd their candidacy may seem to most people. We still treat them with respect and allow them to have an equal opportunity and access to everything. I think we had 21 candidates at our state convention in 2019. And, it is a process of making sure that everyone does feel welcome, included. We often help put together the first trip of a potential presidential candidate, but we share that information with the other early states so that they know, who has a really easy staff to get along with and who has a very difficult staff. And, who did you work with? Because sometimes individuals have one staff person who's really fantastic and one who's not. So, hey, make sure you talk to, Susie. Don't talk to Jack because, Jack's a pain in the butt, but Susie will, get done what you need. So it's really just working with all of them. And as I said, making sure everyone feels that they're being respected and there's a level playing field in all of the states. It's important that none of our state parties are involved in supporting a candidate, and so that we're neutral completely. And I think that's something that has provided us a great opportunity to be that welcome mat.
Yeah. Just for our listeners' sake, so generally what happens is the DNC has decided, and historically they were particularly for over the past, 2 decades, Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina. And they are the only 4 states that are allowed to have presidential primaries or caucuses during that particular period. There are 4 smaller states. And the reason why the DNC wanted smaller states is because it allowed presidential candidates to really navigate that process, regardless of how much money you have or how much name ID you have. Being able to campaign in a smaller state gives you the ability to possibly catch on fire, possibly to build some momentum to eventually become the nominee. We wanted to have a playing field that was as equal and even as possible, and to be able to go to these 4 very disparate or different and diverse states. And so, the 4 worked really well together historically in the past. And then after the 4 would have their primaries and caucuses, then the window would open up. And then you would hear about things like Super Tuesday, in which you'd have, 10 or 12 states all on one primary day, and then other states that would come after that. And so, Christale, I know you've been a part of this as a staffer and now as a chair as well. Tell us a little bit. South Carolina has played a really interesting role over the years in terms of the nominating process. What does that responsibility, being an early state, feel like?
It feels like it's not a burden, but it's definitely a weight, right? As Ray was saying, there's a certain responsibility to make sure that you are accommodating to every candidate, no matter how unorthodox they may be. You want folks to know that they're welcome to come into your state.
Unorthodox. Lord knows, I can give you a few unorthodox ones.
Yeah, and just making sure that you're welcoming them into your state, because the goal is for them to talk to as many Democratic voters as possible, because you want folks to go out and participate in the election process. So, bringing folks in, being responsible about that, as well as I feel like it makes South Carolina a prime or an early state, but I'm talking about South Carolina. So it makes us a prime state for people to come want to work here, right? Which is a double-edged sword, because people want to come to South Carolina and work, and we train these folks up, but then they also want to leave because they can go do more someplace else. So it's a great opportunity for us to be in the early window. It definitely, I think our voters take it very seriously, because our voters get an opportunity to be up close and personal with all these candidates that other states might not get that opportunity to do. I mean, I believe that our voters, they take it seriously, and our state party takes it seriously. Our state takes it seriously.
Christale, you need
And
to brag a little bit more. South Carolina has been the decider for the nominee for how
Well,
many.
see, I didn't want it to go that way, Ray. I'm trying to make this friendly.
The rest of us get to sort them out, where
And
you get to decide.
I
I
don't know
also
about
add
that.
that South Carolina, when I say our voters take it seriously, South Carolina has gotten it right, every time but once here in the last 20 years, as far as when I say getting it right, picking the eventual Democratic nominee. Like, and so goes South Carolina, so goes the nominee. So that's what I mean when I say our voters take it seriously. We end up picking someone who the rest of the country also picks. So we don't really go for the unorthodox folks. We go for serious candidates, and we take our time and make that decision. Was that bragging enough,
And
Ray? I want to keep this serious with all of my friends.
I just want people to get a full flavor of what the
well, Ray, it's a fish fry and the shrimp and grits. That's what it is. Everybody likes to go down to Charleston every now and then.
and that fry is about as crowded as going to anything I've ever been to in my life. That there was, I don't know how many thousands of people there back in 2019 with
Yeah.
Congressman Clyburn's fish fry, but it was phenomenal.
Well,
What a great time that is.
that was one, I really have to say, that was one of the most unique things that I have seen in politics, to have 20 some odd presidential candidates all on one little tiny ass stage.
Mhm.
And they all have Jim Clyburn t-shirts on.
Yeah.
And I didn't think Bernie was going to put one on. Did he eventually put one on? I think even Bernie put on a Jim
Yeah, I
Clyburn
think they
t-shirt.
all had it on. It was mandatory to take the stage.
Oh, well, see,
You want to be on the stage, you were gonna have on a t-shirt.
Well, that's the level of respect that Congressman Clyburn has, because
Yeah.
I don't think that any other state could actually get all of these candidates to stick around to be able to be all together on the stage. Because oftentimes in the other states, they're out the door. Once they're done speaking, they're gone. And so that was very impressive that Congressman Clyburn has that level of respect and is held in such esteem by not just our candidates, but or the voters of South Carolina, but I think by the party itself across the country.
Yeah. And
Well, they
Danielle,
come to Nevada.
yeah, I was going to say Nevada is one of the most diverse states in the nation.
It is. Yes.
And one of the really important parts of our coalition is also labor. And it was so great to see that process work, and to see the labor unions when they made their decision, and all of the behind the scenes. How does that shape the way that candidates have to connect with your voters, that diversity and also the presence of labor?
My goodness. So, being the chair in an early state that's also a must-win battleground state
Yeah.
means the work never stops. And we can't do that work alone, right? An early state plays an important role for our party. First and foremost, we have an outsized role in selecting our party's nominee. But that work also starts the national conversation, as you said, of what the party values are. And it's those conversations with labor, and having labor not just at the table, but also labor leaders being county party chairs and being caucus chairs, working as a team. And we may not have the fish fry, but we have a barbecue here. And so when those presidential candidates come, it's not just coming to Clark County, where it's the hub, the urban hub. They're in our rural communities. They're going in all 17 counties talking to voters. And they don't come and just talk once. They stay in the state because, great things happen in the state of Nevada. That's why we're a must-win state. And we don't take any vote for granted. So not only are we diverse with racial diversity, but it's economic diversity. We have rural communities, we have territorial communities, we have our urban core, and we have those strong labor communities. And it's not, you have your construction labor and you have your service unions that have to come together, but it's that work of the state party chair to it's kind of weaving a blanket. I used to crochet back in the day, and I feel I'm doing that again, but with people and all the different advocacy groups to help bring the party together and get people to vote and get those presidential candidates. We already have some folks coming to the state that might be the candidate. You don't know, but
Yeah.
they're already here in the state talking to the voters.
Let's add a little flavor, some seasoning and hot sauce on this conversation right now.
Okay.
You all have seen so many presidential candidates or possible presidential candidates come to your states over the years. Some, I am sure, are just delightful people, and some you just probably never want to talk to ever again.
Never.
Give us a sense. You pick one. Pick either the most delightful person or the biggest jerk that you've had to deal with on the presidential primary stage.
Okay,
Ray, why don't you start off? Oh, Crystal, you go ahead.
No, that's what Ray's gonna say. You go first,
I
Ray.
think the biggest, the person that has been was over the decades the most disagreeable and unwilling to really work. Never even really said hello to me. Was Congressman Phillips last time, the guy from Minnesota.
Dean
He actually
Phillips.
came to our dinner and he walked right by me. He never stopped to say hello. So that's what I would consider. Obviously, the Clintons. Bill and Hillary Clinton started coming up here in the 1979. So getting to know them in a very personal way. When people say who would you like to be stuck with, in an elevator for a day to talk? I mean, either Bill or Hillary Clinton are absolutely fascinating people to talk to. So everyone else is kind of in between those two.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing I would say about the Clintons that I don't think they get enough credit. Both of them love the party. They really do. There are things that they have done in order to support the Democratic Party without pomp, without circumstance, but they are always there to support the party. I saw it firsthand as not only a state party chair, but also as DNC chair. Hillary Clinton coming out of the 2016 race, the party was in bad shape. The DNC was in really, really bad shape because of the lack of investment. But it was Hillary who really poured more money into the party, helped to build a list and invest in the infrastructure. And she doesn't get the credit for it. And so I'm 100% with you on that. And Ray, I'm 100% with you on Dean Phillips. I mean, I'm sure he's gonna troll me afterwards. But you go on the campus of an HBCU and think the way that you want to connect with kids is you tell them that about Crystal, what was it? Some kind of vodka or something that he was selling?
Yeah,
that was his
what
talking
was his
point.
vodka? Yeah.
I don't know what it was. It was something with Jay-Z or something like
Dunkin'
that.
Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts are the king. There's 11 Dunkin' Donuts stores in the city of Manchester, which is 110,000 people. I mean, we love our Dunkin'. Dean Phillips offered free Dunkin' Donuts and not one person showed up. That tells you that the ability of the New Hampshire voter to be able to instantly realize this guy is not someone you want to hang out with and have coffee and a donut with.
Crystal.
So I don't know if they were a jerk, but definitely unlikable and tone deaf, and just, is there another word for tone deaf? Marianne Williamson is probably the most tone deaf person I've ever met. But as a chair, I was very accommodating and very inviting for her. I hope she does not run again. But the best candidate in my time is being involved with the party, has to be Senator Cory Booker. I think he is just a brilliant, delightful, hardworking, ambitious person, and I hope he runs for president again.
Well,
Crystal, if you'd like to come up, he's coming to our dinner in a couple of weeks. That's on my birthday.
Please invite me. Oh, for your birthday! Yay!
Well, Cory is near and dear to my heart. He really is like my big brother. I've known him since I was 18 years old, and many people don't think Cory. They think his Boy Scoutness, if that's
it's fake.
That's not a word.
It's real.
It's fake.
It's absolutely real.
Cory is the same guy. The same guy that I met when I was 18 years old is the same guy who's a U.S. Senator today, and he really is that authentic in terms of big heart and compassion and brilliance. He really is a really great guy, and love him so much. Danielle.
It's hard to pick one. It really is.
For which category? The jerk?
No, not the jerk. I'd say I would agree and ditto your comments about Marianne being tone deaf. But, Cory's mom lives here and his aunt lives here. So he's in our community all the time, and he's like family here. So some people think, well, is he one of our representatives? Because he's always here, right? But whenever the Clintons are here, I know that we're going to Grits Cafe, and they know they're coming because he's going to go there and have breakfast or brunch at Grits Cafe, and they know him and welcome him because he's that welcoming spirit, and you feel like he's your uncle kind of thing here. But the person that sat down and talked to our youth and was really welcoming was Pete Buttigieg.
Mm.
He had that welcoming spirit that young people gravitated to, and there wasn't a question that was too much. He had a time schedule, but he didn't mind going outside that time schedule to make sure that he answered everyone's questions that were in the room, and he was authentic in his interaction with the community. So yeah, it's hard to nail it down to just one. And I
Yeah.
gotta say, Kamala, even before she announced, was here in our community and
Mhm.
helped me on
Yeah.
policy at the legislature.
Yep.
And she said, "Oh, I got a team for that. Let me reach out and help you with that." And she did it. And then she announced that she was running for president, a year later. So it's hard to say just one. As Democrats, we have an amazing bench
Yep.
of talent.
And you all have some great candidates that are running in 2026 as well. There are current leaders within your state, but I think national leaders as well for the party. And so, that's a great thing about being a state party chair. You're unique in the space because you get the national connection. You have that national connection, but at the same time, you see the stars at the very basic level, people who are coming up through the ranks as school
Mhm.
board and then state house and then mayor and then running candidates for a house in the Senate. I really do think being a state party chair is a hard job, but it's a very special one as well because of the unique space that you fit in terms of the Democratic Party. But, as state party chairs, what's that one thing that keeps you up at night?
Not being able to make payroll, not being able to
Wow.
pay my staff, This is a volunteer organization. We have more volunteers than we do have staff. But, people, this is the 7 staff that we have, this is their job. This is their livelihood. This is how they have their health care. So, you know, thinking that one week I might not be able to pay them is insanity, right? Like I feel like it's crazy because I've never had that experience. So that does keep me up at night thinking that, oh my God, if I make the wrong mistake here, or I don't raise enough money over here, that could impact, have a direct impact on people's lives, day-to-day lives.
Crystal, I'd have to agree with you. I serve in the state legislature here in Nevada, and during the there's a policy, a statute that we can't, as legislators, raise money 30 days before the legislative session through session till 30 days after. But that
Mm.
also means that I can't raise money as a state party chair. So having to leave enough funds there to get us through. Coming home, that's the thing that keeps me up at night. It's making sure I have the resources to pay the staff that are here working sometimes 24/7 and keeping the
Mhm.
lights on. But in
Yep.
this time that we're living through, it's also how do I keep my staff safe
And
in the work
yes,
that they're
that's the
doing?
other part.
And so that's an added expense that we haven't had before as state party chairs for safety and security for our staff. But that is the thing that keeps me up because they've taken these jobs and they have mortgages to pay, rents to pay, car notes, children to feed, making sure that I have the resources to make sure we pay them and to keep the lights on and do the work that we need to do to get Democrats elected.
100%.
I think one of our challenges is that all three of us, I think every state chair, got involved in politics because we passionately care about people. We
Mhm.
passionately care about issues. Many of us, it's very personal, and sort of the trauma that Trump and MAGA America is putting everyone through really impacts us personally as well. But we don't get to show that. We have to be strong for everyone else, and so that's sometimes where I don't get to vent, like others get to vent on me, it's really disturbing. I've spent, you know, my life, obviously working, for LGBTQ rights, and to see what's happening to trans kids is just killing me. It's just, I really thought we had gotten over that hump, and I know what they're going through, having, living in a rural community, in the 70s when you're gay and there was nobody gay. And so that sense of alienation, the sense of nobody being there for you, and then to see the president of the United States, to see legislatures, governors, activists just being so reckless and irresponsible with their lives, and the suicide rate of trans kids are just off the charts. And that's just devastating to me. But I have to be supportive of everyone else's, anxieties and trauma that they're going through. So I think we all have those sorts of issues that really drive us in politics, but we have to put stiff upper lip and be there as was mentioned, as a therapist for a lot of other people.
We have a few minutes left, and I would love to get just a few rapid fire questions in. And the first one that I have for you all is Vice President Kamala Harris has just released her book, 107 Days. You all were right there on ground zero as a part of that 107 days. State parties were very influential in terms of that moment of the
Mhm.
switch between Biden and then Kamala Harris. As you reflect back on 2024, what's the one lasting thing that sits with you? And very quickly, if you could have changed anything from that year in terms of what you had the power to control, or what you felt the party had the power to control, what would that be?
I think that one of the things after the Biden letter hit the RBC back in December of 2002 with the new calendar, I just kept telling us, like, let's wait for the books. We'll find out what really happened, because the president talked to our congressional delegation on Monday night and assured them that we were fine being the first primary. So something happened, and now that I'm reading all of those books and going through it, I see that there was a genuine fear by some of the senior staff at the White House that having the president have to compete here in New Hampshire and talk to voters, that people would catch on that he might not be at 100%. And that is heartbreaking, because we obviously were going to be supportive of him anyways. But if they
Mhm.
knew that at that point, boy, how he would be remembered in history if he had simply announced at that time that he had served his term, because it was a historic first 2 years, and his level of accomplishment is so bad, and now his legacy has been really wrecked by that. And let me tell you, I'm halfway through Kamala's book as well. I've never been more proud of somebody that's been our nominee than Kamala Harris.
Yep.
And hearing in her voice, 'cause I did the audiobook because I wanted to hear her talk about that. It is really angering me on how she was treated as vice president. A lot of my complaints and concerns, and you certainly heard them, Jamie, about why she wasn't more engaged and involved at the state parties and sort of activity that traditionally a vice president would have been. And now we see that she was purposely held back because they didn't want her shine to compete with the president. I think that was a tragic mistake by the Biden senior staff. Two mistakes that they did. One, keeping her sort of hidden away during those 4 years until it was time for her to be our nominee. But then, secondly, not allowing the process. If she had been able to run, in the primary, I think she would have been a stronger general election candidate. People would have got to know her more. The lies and the disgusting things that people said would not have had that impact.
Danielle?
So, Jamie, I'm going to answer this, and it's probably not politically correct what I'm going to say, so I'm just going to preference it with that before I even get started. I'm a Black woman in these spaces, and I'm sick and tired of having to prove to the world, and especially to my party, that I'm enough. What I bring to the table is enough to do this job. Black women have to work 3 times as hard as any of our other counterparts to prove that we're worthy. We had a presidential candidate who was more qualified than any other man, whether it was 107 days, 230 days, 500 days, it wouldn't have mattered. Her qualifications were unmatched by the opponent. And the fact that she didn't get the support from so many people, and some within the party, we have to be honest, some within the party that she should have gotten automatically is disappointing. And it's disheartening, and it's disheartening to little girls everywhere, no matter their racial makeup. Is America ready for a woman to lead? America calls on us to fix the problems when it's has a problem. There's a saying, if you want a problem fixed, call a Black woman to come in and fix it. Well, we had a Black woman on the ballot that could have been there as our president, because the president that we currently have, the guy holding that title, made a lot of promises, broken promises. And I don't know what the governors in your states are doing, but the governor in my state has teamed up with him, right?
Yep.
And those broken promises are hurting families. That's the other thing that keeps me up at night. How those broken promises and those lies that were told are going to impact the families that we all represent as state party chairs. So I know it might, sorry to be on my soapbox,
Yep, get on it.
but she had only 107 days. But it wasn't our first time meeting her.
Nope.
She had ran for president before, right? She had been our vice president. She had been a state senator, a U.S. senator. We knew her. We knew her, right? It was up to us to make sure that she got past that finish line. But there were so many people that wanted to take her down. And sadly, some of those were in the party, And that's disappointing, especially seeing where we're at now.
I think we can all agree one of our proudest moments is how quickly
The
we
party's got
rallied
behind her.
around the vice
Yes.
president. I was at a memorial service at the other end of the state when it came through on the news, and I drove back to the state party office and started getting on the phone. And I had multiple calls back to back. We had the ASCC, my delegates, and I had the state party executive committee. And in every one of them, people uniformly and immediately endorsed her candidacy. And so that made me feel really proud that by 9 o'clock at night, every entity that I was involved in had rallied around her in support of her. Danielle, you're absolutely correct. It is frustrating for me that there are Democrats that do not understand the importance of the role that Black women play. And I had this argument with somebody just the other day when they were talking about how this segment of our party deserves greater power. And I said, the most loyal constituents we have are Black women. So till you're elevating the Black women, I'm not interested in hearing about your constituency. There really is something that we all need to work on. And it's not just the Black women have to work on it. I think all of us have a responsibility to make that change.
In that same vein and talking about the switch and a takeaway from 2024 and thinking about the switch, I'll say it like that. But that was probably the big takeaway for me too, is how people were like hesitant, after state parties, like we immediately endorse her that day, like, oh, who is she? I'm like, what? She was the vice president. Like she literally came to South Carolina to file. Like she filed to run for her and President Biden. And just the level of the lack of support and questioning her ability. And she proved herself to be a complete political athlete in those 107 days. Like she did everything, went everywhere, was ready, was prepared. She gave us everything she had, and we should. And I'm proud that she ran and she did it the way she did it. And I will go back and amend my other answer. I hope that she also runs again for president.
Yes. Ditto.
Yeah, sometimes I'm just dealing with what's in front of me.
I want to follow up on the questioning of Kamala's credentials, because I see that it's so pervasive, and I constantly see it throughout. And there was an article just recently, and I pushed back on it, that I never saw the types of treatment that Kamala Harris got as vice president. It wasn't the same for the other gentleman who served in that role prior to her, regardless of a Democrat or Republican. But there's a constantly questioning of her credentials when she had more credentials than any other person probably who has run for president in terms of just background and what she had accomplished beforehand.
Yeah. I'll say I felt the initial insult with Hillary when she lost to Donald
Yeah.
Trump. Like, it was like, what? If this lady can't be president of the United States, if they don't want her, they definitely don't want me. But, usher in Kamala, and we're moving forward. We're ready. Like, she is here. She's been the vice president. She's done all these things. She's an accomplished, prepared woman. And then the same damn thing again. It makes me disappointed in my country. It's just a disappointment, because it's
Well,
saying to
and
be a
Crystal,
woman.
I would add not only disappointment. Listen, I sort of expect some of that from the country, but some of the shit I'm seeing from people in our party, like
Oh,
even
yeah.
after the fact, the Monday morning quarterbacking right now, just it infuriates me. It
Yeah.
infuriates me. So basically, she was not treated right. So she should just shut up and don't say a damn word about the fact that she wasn't treated right, right? Oh, you need
It's
to
kinda-
go on. You need to move on, right?
Don't
Yeah.
tell anybody how we mistreated you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Know your place and keep your mouth shut. Is basically
Yeah.
what they're saying. Yeah.
No,
100%.
and I feel it to the core, because personally I feel the same way about some of the shit that I had to deal with, and I'm sure many of you all feel the same way.
Mhm.
That I mean, it is folks, some of the folks in this party who believe that well, we gave you your shot. You need to just move on and do something else, and you should be grateful that we gave you that opportunity.
Mhm.
To hell with that.
But she wasn't given an opportunity. She earned everything.
That's
that
what
she
I'm
got.
Somebody
talking
gave her
about.
a
She
damn
earned
thing.
it. Yes. We're not asking anybody to hand anything to us. We don't want that. She earned it. We've earned it. Just respect the fact of what we've done. Acknowledge that and support us. That's all we're asking.
Exactly right. That's exactly
Give me the
right.
same support you gave the man that was
Yeah.
that you gave the man before me.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Just don't move the goalposts.
Don't move the goalpost. Well, listen, I want to close down this conversation. You all have watched enough episodes to know that you now get an opportunity to present an award. It is the Sit Your Ass Down Award. And so very quickly, let's start with Danielle first. Danielle, who do you want to present your Sit Your Ass Down Award to this week?
Oh, wow. Okay, so my Sit Your Ass Down award goes to any Democrat who wants to criticize the party but fails to get involved and be part of the solution. I'm going to need you to sit your ass down.
Boom. Boom, boom, boom. I'm going to circle that, bold that, put it in a box, stars around that. I am so damn tired of these woe is me folks out there who all they have is smoke and criticism for the Democratic Party. Spend half your damn energy, or 3/4 of it, going after these damn Republicans.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
Thank you, Danielle. Crystal, you're Sit Your Ass Down Award recipient.
Oh, can I give out multiple? I'm in South Carolina. I got a lot of people need to sit their ass down. But today I'll give it to Senator Richard Cash from Charleston for bringing this damn ridiculous abortion bill to the forefront that just criminalizes abortion for women, for doctors. And it's absurd. It's a disgrace. And I wish he and the rest of his compadres would sit their ass down.
Sit your ass down. Folks, I want you to know that in South Carolina, in our South Carolina Senate, we have 46 seats. And Crystal, what? 2 of the 46 are women?
Two of the 46 are women, and they're
2
Democrats.
of 46 are women.
Oh, my
And they're
goodness.
Democrats. The state is 51% women, or 52% women, and only 2 of 46 senators in the state Senate are
And none of them are on this committee.
And none sit on the committee that is talking about this abortion ban.
Abortion. Yep.
Oh, my goodness. That
They
just
all-
hurts
that-
my heart.
The
All
whole
white
Republican
men.
conference over there need to sit their ass down.
Yeah.
The dean of the state party chairs, Ray Buckley. Who's your Sit Your Ass Down recipient?
Oh, as has been said, it's very hard to break it down to one or two. I really would love to say sit your ass down to the mega donors that are not writing checks to the DNC right now because their feelings were hurt last year because we didn't win. It's time for you to open up those damn checkbooks. That you're not going to miss that money. It doesn't mean anything to you, but it means a lot to the state parties. It means a lot to the folks that really are on the ground making the difference. My second sit your ass down is the entire Sununu family. For the love of God, God, stop running for office. We got old man Sununu got elected to the legislature in 1972, and they've been on the ballot almost every single 2 years since then. Now we got the guy that Gene Sheen defeated in 2008, now back running for the U.S. Senate after having his younger brother as our governor. And it's just enough of the Sununu family.
Sununu family, sit your ass down. Go someplace else. Go somewhere else. Well, let me tell you, I have so enjoyed this conversation with three of my favorite people in the Democratic Party. And I am so grateful for the hard work and the effort that you all put in each and every day. And folks, quickly give your website so that folks who want to volunteer, who want to be a part of the solution, who want to help you all out, who want to send you some money, where can they go? What's the website in New Hampshire, Ray?
NHDP.org.
Crystal, South Carolina's website.
scdp.org, and sign up to be a democracy builder.
Love it. Danielle, the website in Nevada.
It is mvdems.com. And you can sign up to volunteer and sign up to join us on our weekends of service.
I love it. Folks, make sure you volunteer. Share that with your friends and your family members. And if you can, become a recurring donor to these state parties. As you know, it is so important for the work that they do each and every day. You don't have to break the bank. Just don't go to Starbucks for a day, once a month. $5, $10 a month could really, really help tremendously to these state parties. So again, my friends, thank you so much for being on At Our Table. If you enjoyed today's show, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or anywhere you find your podcasts. To be the first to know who will be at our table next, find us at ourtablepodcast.com. At Our Table with Jamie Harrison is a production of Vision Blue Media. Our founding executive producers are Jason Hayter and Jamie Harrison. Our producers are Kyle Kelly and Emily Harrell. Our content consultants are Ernie Grigg and Clay Middleton. Our digital communications are led by Lauren Brown. Neil Rossini of FWRV LLP provides production legal. Title sequence by Tom Hunt. Our theme song, Blonde Gone, is written by Dewey and published by Alibi Music Library. We recorded this episode at As Told by Studio in Columbia, South Carolina. Special thanks to the state party chairs of Nevada, New Hampshire, and South Carolina and their teams. I'm Jamie Harrison, and I look forward to another conversation at our table.